Good morning. I'm going to review with you today the salt marsh and storm surge graphing worksheet. So on the front, it shows a couple of images. First one is storm surge, where you have big storms like a hurricane, but it doesn't have to be hurricane size, but you get these big storms that blow ocean water, literally like blowing across the surface, and push that water up onto shore, causing major flooding. And you can see that in this image here. During storm surge, these communities can easily get flooded that are right next to the water. But this has been known for a long time. If you have marshes that are on the coast, marshes will decrease the amount of storm surge that you get into communities because they absorb a lot of the energy. They bring down the wave height, but without marshes, nothing's there to stop this wall of water coming through, and you get more flooding events. So we have some data down here, and you see this is by decades, 1900s, 1910s, 1920s, and then we have flooding events with tidal marshes and flooding events without. So these are how many per decade in this area there were based on with or without tidal marshes. Now what we do is we want to look at the graph, and we're actually going to set up the graph. I'm going to help you. First thing we want to do, it's easy to forget, but we need titles. And a title is usually a combination of the two pieces of information that we're putting here. So we're going to do storm surge by decade. And on the bottom, I'm going to do my, this is my independent variable. I'm going to do my decades down here. I'm going to start with 1900s, 1910s, 1920s, 1930s, and you're going to go all the way up to the 1990s because that's where our data ends. So you'll fill in the rest of this. I'll put decade down here. Now on the y-axis, this is my dependent variable. This is the data that's collected. So the number of flooding events. And I can just write that in, number of flooding events. How many times did areas get flooded? For the numbers along the side, it only goes up to 62, so I can start at 0, and each line will be 5. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, and you want to go up to 65 here at the top. So 55 and 60. Before we start graphing, because you're going to have two different lines on this graph, I want to put in two different colors for the lines. So I'm going to put a box here and say flooding events with tidal marsh, and then another one here. This is our key, right? So we'll know which color line represents which data, and we're doing flooding events without tidal marsh. All right, now I'm going to color in, I'm going to use green for the with tidal marshes, and I'm going to use red for the without. So that's my key. Now I can graph, and I've got my information here. Here's my graph. I'm going to start with the flooding events with tidal marshes. In the first decade, 1900s, it's 18. So 1900s, 18 is right about here. And then the next one, 1910s, is 12. So 1910s, 12 is about here. It's above the 10, but below the 15. 1920s, I have 10. 1930s, I have 15. And then you're gonna graph the rest of this data, the rest of that line, and connect the dots. So for me, I'm gonna use green because that's what I set up in my key over to the side. And I'll do a couple of the flooding events without marshes as well. I'll show you what it looks like. So 1900s, 35. And then I have 1910s, 30. The 1920s is 31. The 1930s is 48. So 1930s, 48 is up here. And again, you'll continue the line all the way across using the data that we have in the data table, and then connect these with the color of your choice. For me, it was red. And then you'll have your complete graph after that. Okay, hope this helps.